Hey guys, what's going on? So in this one, we're going to be covering the first half SOS boss for P5X Global version 1.4. So as for the team we'll be running in turn order, we're going to go ahead and go with Wonder first, Lufel second, Key third, and On 4, kind of the standard fire mono team. And then Phoebe is our navigator. If you don't have Phoebe, Okyann is the best slot in here. But considering I used Okyann on the other side, Puppet is kind of all you would have to use here. So if you have to use Puppet, you'll obviously get like a little bit of a score decrease because, you know, she's kind of a defensive Navi, and Phoebe and Okyann are both more offensive Navis. So hopefully this isn't an issue beyond this patch because everyone should get wind. That should help next patch, but for this patch, kind of stuck with just using Puppet on like whatever your side B is. And then as for what Wonder's going to be running here, we're using the Sennight Inferno Dagger. Personas, he's got Komokuten, Baphomet, and Dominion, but it doesn't really matter here. Just pick your highest level persona that you're not using on the other side. And then as for like what skills to put on these personas, Komokuten, all you're going to need to bring is Rebellion, and then if your speed is off, throw Agility Master on. But outside of that, we're just basically using Komokuten as like the slot in for if you don't have Dionysus. So, and as for Baphomet, all you're going to need is the skill he comes with. We really just want Baphomet for the turns where An is using her skill 3. Pretty much, he gives a 20% fire damage boost to after attacking foes that are burning, and everyone is going to be burning throughout this whole fight pretty much. So this is super useful. And then, like I said, third persona doesn't matter. I just bring Dominion because he's the first guy that I see it click on here. So if you weren't running Dionysus on the other side, I'd be using Dionysus here instead of Komokuten. But I want to try and kind of keep it consistent. Like if I'm using Dionysus on one side, I want to try and make it so you can follow both of the videos I put out, and there won't be like overlap of stuff, and you know, you'll watch one and then be confused on the other when I use the same thing. So as for what card sets we're running here, Lufel is using Departure and Prosperity, Key, Departure and Control, On, Acceptance and Strife, and Phoebe, Trust and Power. You do need to make sure that you have Prosperity on someone. I have it on Lufel, like I said. That'll be useful. And again, I think I may have mentioned this in the Guild Boss video with the On I was borrowing from the Guild. I believe you should be able to use this same rotation. This fight's a little bit weird, actually. My On, like, the rotation's kind of off. Like, there's 6 turns in this fight, and ideally you'd want to, like, use her skill 1 on turn 1, because you get, like, an attack boost. From it, she gets, like, a 20% attack boost after she uses her skill 1 for 2 turns. But On, like, doesn't work like Rin does, where if Rin has her soup, and then she uses her skill 1 on her first turn, she'll like still have the soup on turn 2, or she'll get the soup back again on turn 2 or whatever. Once An has her, I think it's La Vie en Rose it's called, from her passion stacks, like they get used on that turn. So you use her skill 1 again, she's going to consume the stack. So you have no choice here but to kind of do this off the rotation. I'd like to. Like I said, in a 6-turn fight, you'd want to go, you know, turn 2, 4, and 6 are kind of her big damage turns. But here it's going to be turn 1, 3, and 5, so that'll affect things a little bit. If for whatever reason that has something to do with my awareness level and you're able to kind of do it on her turn 2, 4, and 6, that's great. But I would have to like be able to run that myself to be able to like put together what kind of rotation you'd want to be using. But I would say anytime that she's going to be using her skill 2, you would probably want to wait to use her highlight. Like whatever I do on turn 5, I would kind of try and replicate on your turn 6. Like the main idea for On here is you want to kind of pair her like biggest damage turn after Key's highlight. There'll be one kind of rotation here where you can use Key's highlight and On's highlight before the damage boost from Key's highlight falls off, and then she gets a buff to her her damage from her highlight, and she'll be able to use her skill 3 with the La Vie en Rose stack. So that's kind of like the main thing. So if your like turn order is different than mine for whatever reason, just keep in mind that that's the main thing you're trying to do. So alright, so before we hop into it real quick, there's like a quick reset you can do here. Like if the boss doesn't get burned on turn 1, or no one gets burned on turn 1, I would suggest just restarting. Key needs like at least one person to have burn when he goes to apply burn to everyone else with his skill 1. So it takes like 2 seconds. You can just restart challenge, the fight will start again, and you know, she'll get burned. So at some point, so it shouldn't take too long. But I do recommend resetting for that. All right, so let's start off with Rebellion on from Komokuten. Lufel, skill 1 on the boss. You also have a chance right there to apply burn on the boss, so you may not need to reset, actually. You could just apply the burn with Lufel, so you have 2 chances, pretty much. And then we're going to go ahead with Key and use his skill 1 on either the boss or whichever one of these guys has burn. It doesn't really matter. Key just needs someone to have burn when he uses his skill 1, so that it turns into an AoE, and he'll apply burn to everyone else. And then, yeah, like I mentioned, An has her stack of whatever the thing is called, she gets with the passion stacks, on turn 1. Like I said, ideally I'd want this on turn 2, but kind of I built this whole rotation around, you know, how this is going to work. So, skill 3 here. If you have it. If you don't have it, use skill 1. To get around, but there is a chance that An dodges the ice attack from the boss, and she'll be up to use her highlight, which lets her use her highlight twice in the fight. I'll be honest, I don't even know if it's worth resetting for. I did try and reset for it a couple of times, but it was like 1 out of every, like, you know, 5, 6, 7 times that it was happening, and I actually got higher scores doing it the way I'm doing it here, where she's knocked down and she can't use the highlight right away. So it's up to you if you want to try it and see, like, oh, I got lucky and An, you know, didn't get knocked down on this first turn. You can go ahead and try and use her highlight straight away right here, and then use it again on the last turn. But I wouldn't go crazy trying to, like, reset to get her to dodge. So anyway, back to it. Phoebe, we're gonna go ahead and use Phoebe's skill 3 here on An. And then we're going to go ahead and we should have Komokuten equipped still, and we're going to go ahead and use the highlight here. And then Komokuten is going to use Revolution. Lufel, so Lufel and Key in this fight, sorry, I know I'm stopping to talk a lot, but there's a lot of, like, weird stuff with this fight. So basically how I'm going through this whole fight with Lufel and Key, if the team is low, like, you know, could use a heal, these guys can sometimes get you if they all end up focusing on one person. So I just like to use the healing satellite. If for whatever reason they, like, there's no one's hurt at all really, and anyone's barely taking damage, you can go ahead and use Owl Fire, but I'm gonna go ahead and use healing satellite if anyone is, like, even remotely, you know, has remotely taken damage. And then I'll get out of the way now with Key. Throughout this whole fight, we're gonna go by this. If everyone has 1 turn of burn when Key goes, you'll want to use his skill 1. But see, this guy has 2 stacks of burn, or 2 turns of burn left, sorry. We're going to use Crimson Summon. We always want someone to have a stack of burn when Key goes, so that he can reapply the burn to everyone. And he goes before An, so An will always be able to attack when all the enemies have burn on them. So we had the one guy with the 2 stacks of burn, or the two turns left on burn, so we're going to go ahead and use his skill 2 here. And then An is going to use her skill 1 here. If all your guys there had just 1 turn of burn left, use his skill 1. And then Wonder is now going to switch to Baphomet. We're going to try and time up Baphomet's Red Hot with An's skill 3 here. So use this on the boss. And like I was saying before, another reason we want at least 1 person to have burn is if you attack a foe with burn, Baphomet gives like the 20% fire boost. Alright, so now Lufel is going to go ahead and use his healing again. if anyone's like missing Starfire or someone's like critically low, just target them. He does a little bit more healing to someone who he's selected on, and can give Starfire to them. Alright, and then we're going to wait on the highlights until next turn. We want to have 2 full turns of them having Key's damage up thing, so that An can get to her highlight on the second turn of it. So we're going to go ahead with Key, and like I said before, just pick someone who has burn and reapply it. And then An is going to go ahead and use her skill 3. Alright, so right before we use Key's highlight, we're going to go ahead and use Phoebe. And Phoebe's only got 1 stack of this, so what we're going to do is, if she has 2, you could probably feel free to use the skill 3 again. But considering I don't have 2, and she wants 2 cocktails to give the crit damage boost, we're going to go ahead and just use the skill 2. It'll be ready again next turn for when An is doing her like real damage. I'm going to give it to Key just because he's going to highlight here, but might be better to use it on An. And then Key's going to go ahead and highlight. And then Wonder is going to switch back to Komokuten and reapply Rebellion on An. Lufel, heal again. I'm going to select An just to give her Starfire. Starfire is not like a huge buff, but like, you know, it can't hurt. And then, considering we just used Key's highlight, everyone will have burn for 2 turns. So you can go ahead and use his skill 2. An will use her skill 1. Now Phoebe should have the 2 stacks, so we'll go ahead and use this on An. This will be like our big damage turn. Switch over to Baphomet and use Red Hot. We fell. Everyone's in pretty good health, so I'll go ahead and just use the healing to make sure. And then Key is going to go ahead and use... Actually, we can use An's highlight now. Key, we can use... So the boss has 2 stacks still, or 2 turns left still. So we can go ahead and use Key skill 2 one more time. It does a little bit more damage, which is why I prefer to use it if I can. And then An will go ahead and use her skill 3. Alright, and now, considering the bosses still have an attack turn left, but this is our last turn of being able to act, they just give them one more action so they can all get hit with the burn to give you a little bit more points. So I'm going to go ahead and use Red Hot again. Lufel, Owlfire. Just get as many points as we can with whatever damage we can put out here on this turn. Key will go ahead and use his... Let's see, does everyone have burn? It looks like everyone has burn. So we're going to go ahead and use skill 2 again. And then we do have a highlight up here, so we're going to go ahead and use Wonders. You should have Baphomet, so it should be just the fire AoE, or a little bit extra. And then, since this is it, go ahead and use Falling Sun. It does like an extra, what is it, like 0.7%, or no, yeah, like 1.5%, but... Alright, and then these guys should just take their burn damage and Keys summon thing. And I don't believe it matters if you survive beyond this. You've already done all you're gonna do here, so... And 2.5, so... Yeah, pretty close to my max. I think my max was like just 2.6. So, yeah, pretty good score here. I'm fairly happy with how that run went. Yeah, there's a lot of variance in this fight, so it's kind of hard to like cover bases of like everything that could potentially happen. So, apologies if like yours goes way differently than this. These SOS fights are a little bit harder because, at least in the guild bosses, I have 30 people basically that I can ask, like, hey, can you put this unit up so I can use, you know, an A0, or it just becomes harder to test in SOS. But yeah, hopefully you were able to get something useful out of this. You can take like the general idea of what I tried to do and apply it to your team, even if it's not exactly the same and your rotation's not exactly the same as mine. But yeah, so thanks for watching and have a good one.